Today on All Things 80s, it's the Star Wars figures no boy ever wanted. Welcome back to All Things 80s. Now today we're going to take a look at the vintage Kenner Star Wars figures that no boy ever wanted back in the 80s. So we'll start at the very beginning, which is the 1977 Princess Leia Organa figure. This was a figure that I have not actually held one in my hand until this year. As you may know, I am starting to collect these again, and as I was a young lad in the 80s, this was one of the last figures I ever wanted. And the reasons behind that are pretty simple. It looks like a girl's doll. This is everything that a boy does not want back in the 80s. And another major reason behind that was that you have to remember that back in the early 80s, or the 80s in general, in fact, there was no such thing as political correctness. So if you were to bring one of these to school, you would have been called a poof, and no one wants to be called that. Still don't want to be called that. But that was the climate back then. Girls had girls' toys, boys had boys' toys, and there was no crossing over. And this is basically a girl's toy. Now, I don't even remember if there were girls' figures back then. I know they had their Barbie doll, their Cindy doll, My Little Pony, etc. But this is the sort of thing that boys did not want to be seen dead with, me included. Now, moving on to 1980, when we have the Leia in her Bespin gown, this one actually takes the levels up a notch, because now we have a girly figure with a pink flowery dress. So if you thought you were in danger of being labelled something for bringing in the original Leia, if you were to bring this to school and show your friends, they would have just been laughing at you all day long, and the names would have been thrown at you. It would have been such a humiliation. But again, looking at it now, I actually quite like this figure. It's got, I've always enjoyed the figures with the vinyl capes. It's like a real moment in time where I guess they didn't really have the technology or the affordable technology to give us cloth outfits at that time. So to see these here in my collection in 2019, I'm extremely happy to see these two. Moving on, things do get a little bit better. So in 1981, we had the Leia in her Hoth outfit. Now, of the three that were released to this point, this one you could have got away with having in your collection. It doesn't look particularly feminine, and again, it's a great looking figure. And it's funny because of all the scenes in all the Star Wars movies, I always loved the Hoth scenes. Simply because those were one of the few sort of scenes you could recreate in person. During winter time, certainly. If it was snowing, you could pretend to be out there in Hoth. I do remember taking my scarf and tying it around my head, thinking I was like Luke Skywalker. But this figure you could maybe have got away with as a lad in the 80s. Again, it's a great looking figure. I'm very happy to have these now. But then the only Leia I did have as a child was in 1983, was the Bush figure, and that was because I got it for Christmas one year. In fact, it was 83. That was my Christmas of Star Wars, and I think I got a lot of Jedi figures that year as it happens. In fact, I do remember I got two Klaatu, like obviously they were carded back then. I got two of them in the same Christmas. Anyway, this figure is actually great because on the one hand, it doesn't look like a girl, and on the second point this was along with Lando in his skiff guard disguise. These were the first time we got these removable helmets, which was quite a novelty back then. But this was a great great figure. I was glad to have that because one of the gifts I got that year was the Jabba the Hutt playset. So this fit in quite well with that. So yeah, this was the first time probably you could get away with bringing a Princess Leia figure to school and not be made fun of. Now in '84, they gave us the Leia in her, Endor battle poncho. Sadly, by the time this came out, my interest in Star Wars had diminished, so I wasn't even aware of this figure being around. It's actually a rather nice figure, to be honest. A nice removable helmet. The poncho is actually nice. In fact, this is one of the better figures, given that you got one removable helmet, you got a nice fabric poncho. You also have the actual rubber utility belt, which I believe does function as a holster. If you can put the blaster into the holster. This one, you would probably have still been made fun of if you brought it to school, but it's not the obviously these two are the ones that you would never want to be seen with. And as we moved along the line, things gradually got better. I think you could have got away with bringing that to school. It's just a pity that I wasn't into Star Wars by the time this one came out. Um, of the five that were released, which is my favourite? I don't know. Now that I can look at things without worrying about being called names, and just in terms of looks, I don't know. I kind of like the Bespin gown, but don't call me names though. So anyway, that was a brief history of why we did not have Princess Leia in our collection in the '80s. I'm not sure if kids these days are quite so judgmental and throwing derogatory names at each other. I guess not, but you never know. But the point is that back then, if you wanted to be a boy, you had to be a boy, if that makes sense. So anyway, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Give it a like, please subscribe, and see you next video.